23 years after their scandalous affair made national headlines, a married couple's seemingly peaceful existence unravels when an actress arrives, hoping to learn the real story behind their infamous romance. In 2015 Savannah, Georgia, actress Elizabeth Berry arrives at the rental home where she'll stay for the next few days. Meanwhile, Gracie Atherton Yu tells her friend Rhonda that she worries about the actress's true intentions for wanting to spend time with her family. Seconds later, her husband Joe Yu grabs a beer from the fridge, and the woman remarks that it's his second bottle. Gracie hopes Elizabeth isn't snobby and mingles with the guests at the barbecue later. Suddenly, her daughter Mary and her friends run inside the house on their way to the roof. Worried they might injure themselves, she asks her son and Mary's twin brother Charlie to keep an eye on them. Soon, Elizabeth arrives, and when no one answers, she picks up a package by the front door and heads to the backyard. After the pleasantries, the actress thanks Gracie for allowing her into their home. The woman says she doesn't mind as long as the actress portrays her correctly in their upcoming movie. So Elizabeth assures that she only wants the woman to feel seen. Then she hands Gracie the package and says it was on the front steps. Immediately, the woman informs her husband that they received another box of excrement. When Elizabeth worriedly asks if they know who sent it, Gracie waves it off as a regular occurrence, given how some people in the community feel about her and Joe's relationship. Later, the actress walks around during the barbecue, writing down her observations in a notebook. Then, Mary and her friends approach Elizabeth and fawn over the celebrity. Hours later, Rhonda sits beside the actress and says Gracie's a dependable friend. The woman worries about the movie disrupting the couple's lives, especially now that things have settled down. So Elizabeth explains that Gracie and Joe's relationship is a complex human story that needs to be told. That night, the actress studies her subject's appearance on several tabloid magazine clippings of the couple's sensationalized affair 23 years ago. Then she looks at herself in the mirror and mimics Gracie's poses and facial expressions. Meanwhile, Joe watches Elizabeth's commercials on the computer. Later, he joins his wife in bed, and she complains that he smells like smoke. He says it's from the gas grill, so he removes his shirt and tries to wash off the smell with water from the glass on the side table. When the upset woman cries, he assures her everything will be fine and they kiss. The next day, Joe finds monarch butterfly eggs on a plant outside, places the cut leaf in a cage inside the house, and texts his friend Michaela a picture. In town, Elizabeth attends a flower arrangement workshop with Gracie. When the woman spots the engagement ring on the actress's finger, she asks if they've set a date for the wedding, but the guest says they haven't yet due to busy work schedules. That evening, Elizabeth joins the couple for dinner and learns Gracie likes to hunt, which she attributes to her tagging along with her father and 4 brothers when she was a child. Eventually, the actress says she'd like to ask them personal questions, but offers the option to end the conversation if they aren't comfortable. When the couple says they're open to answering, she asks about the package they received yesterday and if these instances bother them enough to consider moving to a different town. The woman doesn't think so, and Joe agrees, especially since his father and Gracie's children from her first marriage lived there. Elizabeth asks if she still remembers the first time they met, and she says even though Joe and her son Georgie were classmates, she didn't meet him until he started working at the pet shop the summer after 7th grade. When the actress asks about her relationship with the children from her first marriage, Gracie says she talks to them regularly and even invites the guests to the twins' graduation, which also happens to be the graduation of her daughter Cassidy's son Peter. Before returning to her place, Elizabeth asks Joe if she can visit him at work, and he says yes. Then she mentions how crazy it is that they're the same age, yet he already has kids in college. She says she'll text him so they can schedule her visit, but he thinks it's best if she informs Gracie first. Later, during a call with her fiancé, Elizabeth shares how strange it is that Gracie seemingly doesn't feel shame or regret for her actions. The next day, the actress meets with Tom, the subject's ex-husband. Though the man admits learning of his wife's affair with a teenager came as a shock, he's moved on and believes Gracie and Joe are happy together. That afternoon, the woman joins Mary as she tries on graduation dresses. Gracie asks Elizabeth if she saw Tom earlier, and the latter affirms. Even though she doesn't mind the actress speaking to whoever she wants, she'd like to know beforehand. Then she hands Elizabeth a few pictures, including one from their wedding. Later, the actress heads to the pet store where she meets Mr. Henderson, the owner. The man says his mother, who owned the store in 1990, hired Gracie. Then, the employee asked for a part-time helper in 1992, so his mother hired Joe. Eventually, Elizabeth asks to see the stockroom where the couple got caught doing the deed 23 years ago. After Mr. Henderson leaves to give her space, the woman sits on the steps and simulates the intimate act. The next day,
Question: what is the best e-commerce business to start today? Is it dropshipping from China and selling on Shopify? Long delivery time, low
The next day, Joe sifts through his children's baby pictures when he comes across one of Gracie's letters early in their relationship. Later, he texts Michaela to ask how her day was, but when the woman mentions stepping into the bath, the mental image flusters the man. Suddenly, Gracie calls him into the kitchen to remind him to ask his father how he's getting to the graduation. He says he's dropping groceries there this week and plans to ask his father. Meanwhile, Elizabeth looks at the pictures Gracie gave her, including one where she's cradling baby Honor, her and Joe's eldest child, while wearing a leg cuff. Before bed, the actress uses her nebulizer to control her asthma. Then she watches reels of teen actors auditioning for Joe's character and notes how childlike they are. The next day, she visits Joe at the hospital where he works as a radiologic technologist. He shows her a teenager's x-ray and she holds her hand over the image, then mentions how tiny it looks against her own. Before Elizabeth leaves, she says spending time with him gave her an idea as to what Gracie must have felt sneaking around with him. She realizes she probably shouldn't have said that, and after a tense silence, Joe tells her not to worry because he won't say anything. At a restaurant, she meets with Morris, Gracie's trial lawyer during the height of the sensationalized case. The man remembers Gracie telling him that she and Joe were in love, and she didn't care about the prison time because it was as though she believed
just linking up one time
if she
in a
spoke
closet
to the
or
judge.
whatever.
Elizabeth asks when he thinks the gravity of the situation sunk in with the client, but the lawyer doesn't believe
got
it
sunk
ever
in when-
did. Suddenly, the lead singer of the band performing in
talk
the
about it.
restaurant causes a scene, and Morris says he's Georgie, Gracie's son. The gregarious man joins the table and shares that the affair messed him up and that he learned about it from his brother Billy. He remembers it happened right before his birthday party, which both parents forgot to cancel, so only one guest showed up. When the singer returns on stage, Morris points out that the relationship had its fair share of casualties. Elizabeth says Gracie seems well-liked in the community, given the people who still order her baked goods. However, the lawyer says the people who buy her cakes are a handful that keep repeating over and over, primarily out of sympathy. Meanwhile, Joe drops groceries off at his father Joe Sr.'s
Don't
apartment.
be fake towards
The
me.
older
If
man
you don't
says
like
he'll
my
drive
cakes or you
himself
don't like
to the
me, you need to
graduation.
say
Then
something.
the son shares
'cause
how he can't believe he'll
crazy.
be an empty nester soon after Mary and Charlie leave for college. So Joe Sr. says he'll have more time to focus on other things. The next day, Elizabeth drops by Mary's theater class to answer questions about her profession. One student asks the actress about her experience filming love scenes, and she gives a candid answer, explaining that during the moment, the thin line between methodical acting and acknowledging pleasure becomes blurry. Then, another student asks how she chooses her roles. So she says she chooses morally gray characters because they are interesting. Unfortunately, Mary takes offense to her answer because it implies that her mother is a horrible person. When she drives Mary home, the teen wordlessly exits the vehicle and slams the door. Later, Gracie shows Elizabeth her makeup products and how she applies them. The woman asks if she's always wanted to be an actress, and she says yes. However, she shares that her parents, both academics, always discouraged her from pursuing acting. Then, Gracie asks Joe to take his bugs from the living room to prepare for Honor's arrival, and Elizabeth offers to help. Fascinated by the insects, the actress asks the man how long he's raised monarch butterflies. He says he's done it for years after reading an article about their dwindling population. He admits the hobby seems dorky, but she disagrees and says it's interesting. Then he mentions how his friend Michaela, who he met in a Facebook group, places horizontal sticks in the cages for the caterpillars to climb onto.
It's just
before
different.
forming
You don't
their
really see a lot of
chrysalises.
guys out
Minutes later,
here
Elizabeth and
catching
Joe
butterflies
take a walk, and the man shares
all
that
other
it's
stuff.
still difficult for him to trust that the movie will present their story as it was. He
Right.
knows that people view him as a victim, but he says they wouldn't be together for almost 24 years if they weren't happy. Then,
Right.
he emphasizes that he wanted the relationship to happen. When the actress asks how his parents feel about the situation, Joe says his mother passed when he was 20, and he and his father never talked about what happened. After he returns home, he hears Gracie crying in the bedroom. The woman says her friend Joyce canceled her cake order and all future orders because they're leaving town. She says she wasted time baking the cake when she could have used it doing something worthwhile and adds that she'll have to throw it. Joe comforts his wife and says she doesn't have to throw it out. The crying woman asks where he was, so he says he walked around the neighborhood with Elizabeth. She says she's tired of always having the actress around the house. So Joe explains that it'll be all worth it once people see the movie and understand their story. Later, Gracie serves Joe a slice of Joyce's cake, and he says it's delicious. The next day, the film's director calls Elizabeth to tell her that she's eating into their budget by overstaying in Georgia. Still, the actress swears she's close to finding something true with Gracie's character. Then, the woman tells the director that none of the actors who auditioned for Joe have his quiet confidence. Meanwhile, Mary and Joe
What does that
pick
guy
Honor
doing
up from the
anything?
airport. Later, the man texts Michaela and suggests they take a trip to a butterfly sanctuary in Mexico, but the woman reminds him that he is married. In her room, Elizabeth dresses and fixes herself to look like Gracie while watching a TV movie about the couple's story. While Joe lies on the roof, Charlie joins him and says he can't wait to leave for college. The son takes out a spliff, and the father admits he's never tried it before. Even though Charlie says he doesn't have to partake, Joe insists, and his cuffing fit makes them both laugh. Downstairs, while Gracie teaches Elizabeth how to bake, she says her husband was with 2 women before, while she was only with Tom. She adds that because his father was busy with work, Joe had to take care of his sisters, one of whom had asthma. Then, the woman shows the actress a poem her husband wrote for a school assignment, which was secretly for her. On the roof, the father nearly falls off because of the spliff's effects. Charlie grabs Joe and lays him back down. The man starts crying and says he only wants his son to have a good life. Because he is unable to articulate the complex emotions he feels about sending his kids off to college while he himself never got to experience the same freedoms, he fears the moment might create a bad memory for Charlie. However, the sympathetic teen assures Joe that they're having a meaningful moment. He tells his father not to worry about him and cradles him in his arms, but the man says worrying about his children is all he does. That evening, Gracie toasts to her family during the twins' graduation dinner at a restaurant. Suddenly, Tom arrives along with his and Gracie's children and grandkids. After the awkward pleasantries, Georgie jokes that their table is at the back where the old families are. In the restroom, the woman tells the actress that her brother Mark told her to keep her expectations low so she's never disappointed. So Elizabeth asks what her expectations were, and she says she expected the evening to go well, that her children would love her, and that her life would be perfect. When the actress calls her naive, Gracie admits she is and considers the quality a gift. Before she leaves, the woman tells Elizabeth that she'll have Joe drop her and the kids off at the house first, and he'll return to drive her home. Outside the restaurant, Georgie spots the actress on a bench and asks if his mother's broken her spirit yet. Then, he shares his theory explaining why Gracie's the way she is. He thinks his mother's older brothers took advantage of her when she was a child, claiming he read it in her diary. Elizabeth ponders the information and says it explains a lot about the woman, but wonders why she still talks to her brothers if that were the case. Georgie reminds her that his mother is mentally unwell, which is what he's been trying to tell the actress. Seconds later, the man suggests hiring him as music supervisor on the film in exchange for information regarding his family, and also so he won't speak disparagingly about the movie, Gracie, or Elizabeth when it comes out. When Joe arrives, the actress says she'll think about Georgie's proposition, then gets in the car. In the vehicle, the woman uses her inhaler, and the man mentions how his sister has the same condition. When they reach the rental home, she asks him for help figuring out how to use her nebulizer. After he sets up the device, Elizabeth thanks Joe and places her hand over his. Then, he gives her Gracie's letter but asks that she not read it while he's there. Suddenly, the woman kisses him and says he still has time to start his life over. Then, the pair remove their clothes and make love on the floor.
Here's one thing you need to do before buying anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this first.
On the floor. After the deed, they transfer to the bed, where she asks if he's ever slept with other people while in a relationship, and he says no. He admits he's had crushes on people but never went beyond that because it'd hurt Gracie. The actress assures him his wife will be okay if he leaves her, but he disagrees and says the woman doesn't know Gracie. When she dismissively refers to the couple's relationship as a story, Joe takes offense because it's his actual life. Incensed, the man gets up and puts on his clothes. He says he thought they had a genuine connection and that she really liked him. Elizabeth says she does, so he asks what their lovemaking meant to her, and she callously says that it's just something grown-ups do. After Joe leaves, the actress immediately grabs the letter and reads it. Later, the man sits in a chair in the dark, waiting for Gracie to wake up. The wife asks what he's doing, and he meekly says there are things about their relationship they've never discussed. When she prods him to continue, Joe asks what if he wasn't ready to make those decisions 23 years ago because he wasn't old enough. To his surprise, Gracie defensively says he was the one who made the first move. He reasons he was just a teenager, but the woman refuses to listen and says he's upsetting her. She says she's sympathetic to his situation, but he asks why they can never talk about the past. He states that they should be able to talk about anything if they're as in love as they say they are. However, Gracie takes offense to his implication that they're simply pretending to be in love, and she takes the opportunity to walk away from the conversation, reasoning that they can't argue on their children's graduation day. Meanwhile, Elizabeth performs Gracie's letter as a monologue in character. The next day, a butterfly emerges from the chrysalis in one of Joe's cages. Later, while the father prepares breakfast, he sees the winged insect, takes it out of the cage, and sets it free. Mary, dressed for graduation, asks where her mother is, and Joe says she's probably at the beauty parlor parlor. Unbeknownst to them, Gracie's hunting in the woods, where she spots a fox. During graduation, Joe stands by the fence and cries when he sees his children walk across the stage. After the program, Elizabeth tells Gracie that she's heading to the airport soon. The woman wonders if their time together ultimately mattered for the movie, and the actress thinks it will. Then, Gracie says she hopes Elizabeth didn't believe Georgie's lie about her brothers. She says she and her son speak every day.
First of all, we're not going to talk about the fact that they still together. Like, we ain't going to talk about how the husband cheated with that lady.
However, she believes she isn't one of those people and tells the actress to include that detail in the movie. Weeks later, Elizabeth asks the director for another take of a scene in the stockroom where her character first seduces Joe, because she believes it's becoming more authentic with every take.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a...
Not adding where she seduced Joe. Yo. Oh, bro. Mom traps not of age boy by making him babies. This is ooh, it's toxic, but we ain't gonna talk about it. But yeah,